Welcome to the Wordy Pair Podcast, your go-to hub for all things writing, world building, and the occasional dive into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We're breaking down the barriers between you and your next great story. Whether you're a seasoned scribe or just scribbling your first sentences, we've got something for you. We'll be discussing everything from crafting compelling characters to dissecting the good, the bad, and the downright bizarre in the world of fiction. Okay, this script says you guys are eccentric. Isn't that just a 3-syllable word for weird? No offense. So, whether you're in need of inspiration, a good laugh, or just a couple of weirdos to keep you company on your writing journey, you're in the right place. Thanks for tuning in to the Wordy Pair Podcast.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Wordy Pair Podcast. As always, I'm Rudy.
And is Justin.
And is Justin just back from reading something?
A couple of days ago, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
We were going to finish up on The Mysterious Journey to the North Sea by jumping on part 2 after I read it, and
Right.
I have finished reading it.
Awesome. So just a reminder for people who are new or people who haven't heard that episode, this is part of the Vampire Hunter D series of novels. I guess, are they novels or are they light novels technically?
Oh, they are novels. These are full-length novels. So let me actually pull up a segment out of this book.
Okay.
There is he talks before the chapter or the book begins.
Yeah.
The author has a little section where he's discussing his writing, which I may have mentioned this before. Well, shoot, now I'm wondering if I actually read some of this beforehand.
Possibly.
Okay, so the postscript for the second part. I know I didn't read that.
Okay.
So he writes, "In the last volume, I wrote that I'm not a big fan of anime, and the first thing I don't like about it is the art. Now, this kind of like or dislike is a sensory problem, and there's not much that can be done about it.
Yeah.
But when I think about having a character I created drawn in a style I don't care for, my anger starts to rise even before the chills set in.
All right.
Fortunately, I was quite pleased with the way the second D turned out.
Okay, good.
Another problem I have is the voices. I believe my dislike of anime can be attributed to the endless volleys of shrill, squeaky voices I endured during the countless kid-oriented anime programs I saw on TV as a child. As you
Makes
are
sense.
probably aware, the voice duties for all anime heroes seem to be handled by women. In other words, the better part of kid-oriented anime is packed with thin, girlish voices, and for someone like myself, who can't handle anything but the sweetest female whisper, the whole world has left me exasperated since childhood." That is pretty fun. I mean, he is right.
Yeah, he is.
It's like, Goku's voiced by a girl, Luffy's voiced by a girl. I mean, that wouldn't have been when he was a kid, but Goku would have.
Yeah.
And that was true of pretty much all the big heroes of that kind of anime.
Well, a lot of those stories started out with children characters, and so you wanted to have the story have lengthening. You need a voice that can stay high pitched, as opposed to hiring a kid and 2 years later finding out that his voice changed, and well, you're kind of screwed.
Plus, I mean, it's not like you can have adult men voicing child heroes. You and I doing the voices.
You totally
of
could, but it would be a little weird looking.
It would be weird.
I mean, it's something that'd be worth trying at some point, honestly. Just for the sheer comic value of it.
We could do a fan dub of something.
Like Hello Kitty.
Yeah, actually, that would be perfect. I mean, look, it's the joke I use for my VTuber.
Sure.
What's more, the way anime characters deliver their lines. They sound so pretentious. I mean, I realize it's intended for children and everything, but it's simply too much. I always ended up wondering if what I was watching was supposed to be some kind of opera, and the stories are naturally geared toward children, or as we say in Japan, so simple they could only fool a child. Why a program intended for children would want to fool them is something I could never understand, and that must be why I can't stand them. Now, I think
that's a solid point,
Yeah.
Right? Like, people, we have that today where people are like, oh, this is a movie for children, and so it doesn't need to be good or have a consistent story or
Yeah.
have character development, which is one
Didn't
of the
we do
most...
an episode about that?
Maybe? I know we've mentioned it before.
Yeah. So he says, now think for a moment about the technology back then. This was about 50 years ago. Movies weren't too bad, but TV anime was positively wretched, and things only got worse once I became acquainted with American animation like Disney's Mickey Mouse, Woody Woodpecker, Hanna-Barbera's Huckleberry Hound, Felix the Cat, and others at the movie theater. While Tetsuwan Atomu, or Astro Boy, was the product of the blood, sweat, and tears of the Genius Comics creator Osamu Tezuka, when you stripped away the nationalistic cries of Japan's first serialized TV anime, the difference between it and the foreign product was like night and day. Well, let's just leave it at that. The quality of our homegrown product has improved greatly in recent years. As I've stated before, I'm extremely satisfied with the 2 animated versions of D. The same director and staff who have expressed an interest in doing an animated version of Demon Journey to the North Sea, which I guess is the original name, also made the second D anime, which I particularly enjoyed. So that's practically a guarantee of high quality right there. The problem is, the president of the production company the director belongs to doesn't care too much for the project. Demon Journey to the North Sea is a work that I'm quite fond of, and I have high hopes for an anime adaptation of it, and I'd be overjoyed if all the readers of the English edition would join us in our support for such a feature. Now, unfortunately, this was written in 2007.
Right.
And he wrote it while he was watching Dracula AD 1972. So yeah, we're not likely to get a movie version of this anytime soon.
No, the odds are low.
Which is a pity, because the things that he mentions in here are they're kind of things that make D stand out from a lot of anime, because you don't have a lead character who has a high-pitched girlish voice. You do have an anime that is very much geared towards adults instead of children.
Yeah.
And you're not really being fooled by anything in it, for certain. It's just good old-fashioned D fighting the bad guys and doing his thing.
Okay, fair enough.
So, having said all that, I guess we can talk about the second half of the story.
I mean, that would be why we're here.
And I'm just going to preface it with a little bit of the inner workings of D as a character, where he never seems to be too much at odds with his opponents. And in this story in particular, that
what do you mean by
really
at odds with his opponents? What do you mean there?
Well, let's say at physical odds. Like, he's never really outclassed by his opponents.
All right.
They have a character that in the first part of the book, they really started building up as, like, maybe being the guy who's going to be the big villain at the end of the story.
Right.
And he has a very unique and practically unbeatable ability as compared to a lot of the other characters that D faces in this story. And he faces off against a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned in the previous episode that we talked about the first part that there were basically 5 main villains in the first part. Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah.
And they all survived, I think, the first part. So we now need to start whittling them down, I guess, right?
Yeah, and they do get whittled down. It does take a while to really get rolling on that. I think the first one doesn't really get taken down to, like, maybe a third of the way into the second half.
I mean, I'm all right with that. Let the build-up happen.
And there was a lot that happened, but it's like, all right, so put it like this. I didn't think there were too many books out there that could even come close to the amount of action that I tried to put into The Good Guy. Right. I was focused on that, like hyper-focused on getting as much action into that story as I could.
Sure.
This one comes close.
Okay,
it's
good.
Practically all action. And, I mean, these are action
like,
stories to begin with, but I mean...
And like real action, not like we appear in our POV and Diaz just killed the thing?
Yes, that's correct. It is real action.
Okay, good.
So...
Because I worried that we were giving the wrong impression to people about the series with our discussions on it so far, because we do kind of dwell on that a little bit in the previous episode, where we're like, yeah, you kind of walk in on him at the end of the action a lot of the time, but it's good to see that not be the case here.
Well, we were talking about that in terms of the movie. I mean, the movie is probably not reflective of exactly what happened in the book. I get the feeling that when I get to reading that... well, no, actually, I don't that story, the movie was not really as similar to the story as
Well, it might be a hybrid of a couple of things or something like that. We're not sure, so without
Yeah,
diving into it historically, that we won't worry about it too much.
yeah, but I mean, either way, there's plenty of action in these stories where you don't have to worry about that being a problem regularly.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he fought all of these characters except for Professor Krolak is the one with the strange. So he has Professor Krolak's ability
Yeah.
in this story is that the better a picture he draws of a person, the more he can control that person by talking to the picture.
Okay.
And in the first story, he nearly kills one of the 5 that are hunting for this bead because he wants the bead as well.
It was a pearl, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a bead, a pearl. They refer to it as a bead and a pearl in the book.
Okay.
There's this sorceress that has the ability to conjure the image of whoever someone cares about most so that they can be manipulated.
Okay.
So it's a very similar power to Professor Krolak's because they don't want to do anything that would hurt the person they love most. It's almost like a mind control thing where she can control people by having them obey the words of the person that they're seeing.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, Professor Krolak, he just draws an image of someone and then speaks to it, and they'll do whatever he says.
Yeah. If he draws it well.
Yeah, well, I'm not entirely sure how much that mattered in the story, because they never really said just what that was, but he implied it at the end of the story.
Okay.
That the better his drawing is, the more control he can have over someone. The sorceress, he basically tells her to go jump off a cliff, but she gets rescued by this 6th person who is not part of the group of 5, but he is kind of also after D because he wants to prove that he can defeat D in battle.
Okay.
So he becomes a character that starts to interfere with the other 5, and then the sorceress sort of falls in love with him.
Okay.
And that becomes a bit of intrigue between her and the other group that wants to hunt down D, but they've all basically got the same goals.
Yeah.
The original 5, of course, are trying to work together in the second half of the book to take down D, because they've all fought him individually now.
Okay.
And none of them can best him. So now it's a combining of their abilities.
Okay, interesting.
And by doing so, they're all aware and have said as much as, well, once we get the bead, all bets are off and we're probably going to be at each other's throats.
Yeah.
And, that's they basically know that. So they're making all these rules for each other and just trying to be careful around each other. There's one guy that's kind of following everyone around and watching what they're doing, and you learn later in the story that his name is Twin, so it's really implied that there's 2 of him.
Yeah.
But you don't get told that directly until he actually says it. I think he says it to D when he realizes that D was reacting to 2 different people at one point. And
okay.
The second twin gets killed early on by D, and so the other twin is like, oh, you knew he was there. That kind of thing, right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Now, this second half of the story is chock full of action, and it's a really fun read. But it's also a part of the story where you start to realize that D is just way overpowered in this story.
Uh-huh,
Like, compared to the other characters, there is this character that is able to trick people into raising their sword at an inappropriate moment. And then he's able to cut them down as they raise their sword. It's like a little whistle trick that he does, that he'll whistle and raise his sword, and then they'll raise their sword, and then he's free to cut them down.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
It is. Everyone's got a neat little...
Is it like semi-hypnotic, or how does it work?
Yeah, that's kind of what they say it is. It's a little bit of like a brief mind control.
Okay, cool.
And he tries this. He's the one he's called the Seeker of Knowledge. I believe his name was Gyoki or Goki or something, but he refers to himself as a Seeker of Knowledge.
Okay.
And what he means by that is he's always trying to better his abilities, and he's always looking for the next challenge, and D becomes his challenge in this book.
All right, pretty standard kind of character position to have for something like this.
Yeah. And he's not really interested in the beat as much as anyone else, but he's willing to work with them at one point to Just like, as long as he gets to fight D, he'll help them get the bead. And that's how he kind of works his way into the group of 5, because at first he's at odds with them.
Yeah.
So he tries this trick on D, and he's almost successful at it, but he like freaks out at the last second because he realizes that D is about to kill him, and so he jumps back, and you don't get an explanation for exactly what happened right away.
Yeah.
But if a couple pages later, you realize there's this character that can shoot this liquid that can harden really quickly.
Okay.
And the only reason that this guy didn't die fighting D, because this trick just straight up didn't work against him.
Yeah.
Or D was so incredibly fast that even if it had worked, he would have been able to cut him down anyway.
Yeah.
The only reason he didn't is because this guy interfered in the fight.
Okay.
Which, good for the seeker of knowledge, but he's angry about this because he wants to face D one-on-one.
Right.
Even with I'll get to the events that happen at the end, but you've got all these characters that have these different abilities. The sorceress can do nothing to D because there's no one that she can show D that he's going to have any sympathy for, because that's his character. He's there to get a job done, and you're not going to be able to fool him. Although that's not entirely true. They fool him several times by convincing him that the girl that he's supposed to be the bodyguard for, there's a character that can look like anyone that kind of fools him for a bit.
Okay, sure.
And then there's a second character towards the end, just a bit character that gets hired that can actually physically transform into these people.
Yeah.
But it's funny because just like in some of the stories, it's been shown that D has had a few lucky escapes, or he has faced an opponent that is kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
In this story, they made all of these characters out to be incredibly dangerous, and none of them stand a chance against D when it's a one-on-one battle. There's a guy that I think we mentioned him. He was in the last story briefly.
Yeah.
King Egbert, who had the ability to take an area of land and make it his personal kingdom where everything in it will obey him. So he can change the gravity, and he can change how plants grow and all these other things. And even he wasn't able to really do much to D in those instances. So they all kind of combined their abilities several times, where someone would draw D into King Egbert's area, and then he would start messing with everything to slow D down, and then 2 of them would try to attack.
Yeah.
And D usually came out on top. The closest they ever came is when they realized that D has trouble fighting in water because he's half vampire.
Yeah.
They tried to sink him in an underground cavern, and at this point in the story, this is closer to the end, but essentially the closest they got was they had him underwater. They were going to try and drown him and then kill him. And at the last second, he just starts rising up out of the water because he had guessed their plan and had this balloon fixture that lifted him up out of the water. And the only reason they didn't defeat him is because King Egbert kind of turned on the person that was helping them at the last second.
Oh.
In the hopes of getting the bead for himself. He was supposed to increase the gravity if D got out so that they could drag him under again. Because one of the guys he was fighting is a guy he was created in a vampire's laboratory.
Yeah.
And so he was incredibly physically fit, although not enough to match D. But he could also turn into a mermaid. It was a weird part of the story where there was this thing happening in the town where all these boats were being flipped over and people were being attacked by a mermaid. And it was a female mermaid, so there was no way to really get a lead on what was going on here until you found out that when this guy turned into a mermaid, he turned into a female mermaid, not a male mermaid. So
a lot of these character abilities appear to be like, so I'm thinking about like the first book / movie, right? Where like most of the abilities that these characters have are pretty clearly designed for combat use. Whereas it seems like the stuff that you're talking about in this book, there's a lot of like trickery involved specifically in the characters, as opposed to some of the other stories where it's more like a straight up combat kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's probably because these are all mercenaries for hire that were... So you remember at the beginning of the story, there was that guy Gilligan, who was just this enormously, grotesquely fat guy in a mech suit thing.
Right.
And he essentially had his head cut off by D, but a couple pages after that happened, we witnessed a scene where he's putting his head back on
Right.
and vowing his revenge, essentially. Well, he comes back. I don't know if... So there was this giant metal crab, a giant enemy crab, if you will, that showed up when Dee and Wu Lin went to the vampire, the noble's little area that they had on a cliffside near the ocean.
Yeah.
And it was attacking them for reasons unbeknownst to Dee, or at least unbeknownst to the characters with Dee. It was
Well, for
kind
the
of
purposes
hinted
of a
at
crab
that,
battle.
Yeah, essentially. So a big mecha crab, and it was the one thing that Dee had a little bit of trouble with for a while. And that didn't really last too long, but the second time it appeared, it was flipping boats over, and it was just basically threatening the town, and the town was given a message that if the bead isn't delivered to the noble's estates by a certain time, that it would attack again, and it basically ruining a fishing village's ability to survive.
Okay, I mean those are pretty decent stakes.
Yeah, and these kind of stakes pop up. Yeah. Yeah, they pop up about 4 or 5 times in the story, because I think that's about how many times someone sent a note to Dee saying, meet us here, and bring the bead if you want to save so-and-so.
Right.
So, by the middle of the book, he had probably fought the same couple of people 3 or 4 times. And he's doing an investigation on what's going on near the sea, where there's supposedly a vampire that is coming back to haunt the town and to kill people every couple of seasons. But the vampire shows up, and Dee does battle with it, and it's kind of a weird situation where this vampire is the one that did the research and is the one that created the guy that could turn into a mermaid.
Okay.
But for some reason, he's having a bit of trouble remembering who he was, and he recognizes Wu Lin for some reason.
Huh.
So they do battle in the ocean, where this vampire has the advantage, and the vampire has to run off at some point, and Dee goes back to land, and that's where the other 5 characters learn that Dee is not as effective when he's in water, which is where their plan comes from. And the whole time this is going on, Professor Krolak is completely in the background. He's not really doing much throughout the story, so it's really hard to figure out, well, is this vampire going to be the main villain? Is Gilligan the main villain? Or is Professor Krolak the main villain? And then as it gets closer and closer to the end, you've been dealing with these 5 or 6 mercenaries the whole time.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, Gyoki had this, the Seeker of Knowledge, had this battle that essentially mortally wounded him.
Okay.
And it was him against King Egbert.
Okay.
Kind of tricked him into a cliffside and threw him into the ocean. So he's dying, and the sorceress wants to do something to help him. And since the Seeker of Knowledge has but one goal in mind, which is to defeat Dee, even as he's dying... Yeah. Well, that's what he considers knowledge seeking. Like, the knowledge to be able to defeat people is...
I guess. I mean, there's a lot of kinds of knowledge. That's a little bit of a narrow view.
Well, he kind of gets obsessed with the whole Dee thing, because he really feels like he could beat him, but he just has to get the chance to do so.
Right.
And he does want to face him one-on-one. He doesn't want there to be any trickery. So then he decides, well, there's only one way that I can really both live through this and get a chance to fight Dee again. Yeah. So she tells this sorceress to find the noble that is haunting the village and to bring him back and turn him into a vampire. And then he'd be able to face Dee on the equal footing of them both having vampiric powers.
Okay, all right.
Well, she doesn't know how to do this, so the best solution she can come up with, because she becomes obsessed with this guy for some reason, she comes up with the idea of going to the sea, and I think she like slit her throat or something. Did something to like get the vampire to show up, and became a vampire herself, and then she came back and turned Gyoki into a vampire.
Seems like she wouldn't have had enough time for that if he was dying already, but okay, fair enough.
Well, I mean, she managed to do it, and so now they're both vampires, and they both decide to go after Dee.
Yeah.
They kidnap the girl that he's protecting,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, even Goki and the sorceress, whose name I really can't remember. It's probably right here. Simone. Her name was
Okay.
Simone.
Yeah.
And I'm actually wrong. Glenn is the name of the Seeker of Knowledge. Goki was the guy that could turn into a mermaid.
Oh, okay.
So I've had that wrong this whole time. But Simone kidnaps Wu Lin,
Mm-hmm.
and she just straight up wants to kill Wu Lin. But Glenn has promised Dee that she wouldn't be harmed. He just wants to fight him, and he doesn't care about anything else.
Right.
And now Dee has to fight him because Dee is not going to let either of them go because they fed on 3 children from the village and turned them into vampires. They had to be killed.
Yeah.
And so now Dee isn't going to let them go one way or another.
Sure.
And you kind of have this situation going on where Simone is threatening to kill this girl, and Glenn is threatening her if he doesn't leave her alone because he's a vampire of his word.
Mm-hmm.
And they finally do battle, and they don't quite get a chance to be killed by Dee because they get interrupted. I'm actually struggling to remember what interrupted them, but essentially they had to run off, and they were going to go and lick their wounds and come back after Dee again.
Yeah.
When they get to this hideaway that they've got, that's when Professor Krolak shows up again.
Oh.
And Glenn tries to fight him, but he's already gotten pictures ready of everyone involved, and so he's able to get Glenn to kill himself by stabbing his own heart and cutting off his own head. So he can even do this to vampires. So now we've looked at that, and it's like, oh, okay, so what is Dee gonna do when he has to fight this guy? Because it's already been said that this guy has a picture of Dee as well.
Right.
And the whole book kind of went through this theme of somebody had a really good idea, and then they fought Dee, and they're like, wow, we really underestimated what Dee could do.
Right.
Simone couldn't touch him. Glenn probably did the best against him in physical battle.
Yeah.
Really, but even he was aware that, he would have killed me if that other guy hadn't interfered.
Right.
The only other person who really did reasonably well, there was one character who was able to create mannequins and puppets.
Okay.
And they were very realistic. And he fooled Dee several times with these puppets. And every time Dee would get into a battle with one of them and kill them, it would turn into just a regular wooden puppet before his eyes, and so it would be obvious that it wasn't a real person. This character hounded a lot of people in the story with this trick. He actually had Professor Krolak at one point. He kind of had him, like, where he had a poisonous spider on him, and if he tried any tricks, he would kill him. But in the end, the professor managed to fool him into removing the spider or something. Something happened to the spider, and he ended up being able to kill the guy, the puppet guy, after that.
All right.
It was kind of like Professor Krolak was the only one who knew what the guy really looked like, for some reason. That's another thing that is eluding me. But there was just so much happening, it was kind of hard to keep track of it all. It really was like page by page. There was some intrigue between 2 characters. One person has a plot against another. And then there's like 3 other plots going on in the background. It was a lot of material being crammed into this, and a lot of fight scenes. And in the midst of all that, there was also Dee doing an investigation into the noble that had decided to show up again.
Okay. Kind of a lot of things, really, a lot of plates spinning at the same time.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to jump back on the timeline and say, okay, when did this event happen and when did this one happen? It's only been a few days since I finished it, so it really was a lot to remember. And just these couple of characters that I mentioned so far, like I know that the mermaid guy dies at the end. He gets killed by Dee. He gets sliced in half after that whole water and balloon thing that Dee pulled.
Yeah.
King Egbert at that time had been turned into a vampire by Simone. So he was also that's kind of why he turned on him as well, because he was working for Simone and Glenn at that point. There was a love triangle where Glenn and Simone were together.
Yeah.
Egbert had always liked Simone, And so Egbert had tried to kill Glenn, and then they all became vampires and worked together for some reason. And
Okay.
and then, finally Egbert had to fight Dee after that, and between him and who was it? One of the last of the two twins, the one that survived.
Yeah.
He didn't realize that Egbert was a vampire at that time. And so when he saw Dee escape and he realized that Egbert wasn't using his gravity powers to drag Dee back down underwater.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was why, by the way. It wasn't because of any particular deal that was worked out. It was because Simone had bitten Egbert, so she was controlling him.
Oh,
and
okay.
she wanted Glenn to get his wish to face Dee alone, so Egbert was making sure he survived.
Okay.
But that didn't work out too well for Egbert, because the other twin, when he realized that Egbert had betrayed them and that Egbert was a vampire, he snuck around and stabbed him through the heart.
Oh,
and
okay.
ended Egbert. So it wasn't actually Dee that killed him.
Huh.
So yeah, I guess I shouldn't be spoiling every single thing that's happening, but I mean, these are the big events that happen, and there's a lot that happens.
Yeah, yeah.
The crab that he fights, that ended up being Gilligan from the beginning of the story, who we have not seen since the beginning of the story. It turned out he was this big crab thing all the time. He had wrapped himself inside this giant mechanical crab thing to support his weight.
Oh.
And his story ended up being similar to Professor Krolak, where they were both people who were kind of like the seeker of knowledge, except they had a name for it. It was like blood seekers or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they studied vampires and studied their science, and in many of the cases, their goal was immortality, and they wanted to become vampires themselves.
Yeah.
That was Professor Krolak's goal. That was Gilligan's goal. The reason Gilligan was able to survive having his head cut off was because he had done research into vampires and had discovered methods of holding off death for a limited time.
Yeah, yeah.
So he explains all of this to Dee. After Dee returns to settle the score, it turns out that Dee shows up and Gilligan inside this mechanical crab is sort of cut to pieces. And he explains to Dee that Professor Krolak had been able to show up and he said all he did was tell me to cut off my own legs and kill myself, and I just did it. So he has some kind of power that he can use like that.
Okay.
These are the big events that are interspersed with the lesser events, like Wulin being kidnapped and kept in a temple, and there's this really weird scene where Dee's hand got cut off, and so now people are looking for Dee's hand because it has the pearl, but they aren't really aware that his hand is also sentient at the time.
Right.
So it just so happened that this hand decided to follow the kidnappers, and he ends up... There's a thief as well, besides these other mercenary characters.
Uh-huh.
There is this thief who just started following Dee and Wulin around because he was passing himself off as a priest.
Yeah.
And when he realized all these people were after this bead, he decided that he was going to try and steal the bead because it must be worth a fortune. And he considers himself the greatest thief that is alive.
Okay.
With good reason. I mean, he's able to disguise himself really well.
Yeah.
He did appear early on in the book. He had some little trick where he could use a set of rings he had, and I believe he takes one ring for himself and he attaches the other ring to someone else. Okay. And in doing so, he's able to get them to like he'll walk away from a fight and they'll walk away too, as long as the ring is touching them. And it'll take them a moment to realize that they've been tricked like that.
Okay.
I don't think it was ever explained in the book how he gets the other half of the ring back.
Uh-huh.
but he just does.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's worth noting that seeing as how this all happens in like 12,000 years in the future, right? Another point in support of him possibly being the world's best thief is that whatever powers Arsène Lupin might have had, immortality doesn't seem to be one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
so the slot is open by now.
Yeah, and I don't think that thieves are or I don't think vampires are particularly into the whole thieving thing. It doesn't seem like it would be very difficult for them to take anything they wanted anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't think they would be competing for that particular...
But I mean, if they wanted to do it without, like, informing people that it had happened, that would be like a test of skill.
Yeah. So this thief character, he is actually the second person, or no, he's the first one in this half that kidnaps Wu Lin, because she gets kidnapped several times.
Okay.
In this particular, she's like April O'Neil in the original Ninja Turtles cartoon.
Yeah.
So in this particular moment, he's pretty much just saying, yeah, there's no way I can defeat Dee in battle, so I'm just going to be like, hey, just give me the bead, and I'll tell you where she is, and I'll be on my way. And honestly, his plan is probably the best one. The only reason it doesn't really work out for him is because he starts running into the other 5 mercenaries.
Yeah.
Him and Wu Lin barely escape Professor Krolak. Professor Krolak is the one who finally succeeds in getting the bead, and he immediately uses it to its purpose, which, since I've spoiled everything else, I'll just go ahead and say is he's able to go into the laboratory of one of the vampires and turn himself into a vampire. So when he reemerges from the sea, and it's the same vampire that's been haunting everyone. So when he changes into a vampire, he also becomes one of the vampires that can be in the sea without much trouble.
Okay.
And so he considers himself a better breed of vampire.
I mean, fair enough.
He immediately shows up and finds the thief, whose name I can't quite remember. It was Toto, I think. Like the dog, Toto.
Yeah.
And him and Wu Lin are on the beach when this guy emerges, and he's going to, I believe, I don't remember if he was going to kidnap Wu Lin and kill the other guy or just kill them both, but he's a vampire now, so he's hungry. He's going to try and eat them.
Yeah.
And Toto uses his ring to pull his trick and get Krolak to walk away, and they both run off. And at this point, just a very unnecessary in the moment bit of character development for Toto for no reason that I could discern in this book.
Yeah.
Wu Lin drops the idea in his mind that you could just stop being yeah, that's actually exactly what it was. It's like, you could just stop being a thief, and I mean you've got to have plenty of money if you're as good as you say. And you could just retire and live in this village peacefully from now on. And it's just completely out of nowhere. Because he's not going around killing everyone like everyone else. He just wants to steal stuff.
Right.
So anyway, when he has her kidnapped, before that happened, the hand showed up, and
Dee's hand.
Yeah, Dee's hand.
The living
his
one.
Abilities
that
are
also has the pearl.
Yes.
This is very complicated.
It is. Like I said, the timeline is hard to remember because obviously Krolak got the pearl at some point, and so Dee's hand having it now, it means that the events I described happen way later.
Yeah.
But Dee's hand shows up, and in one of the things that they kind of demonstrate a little bit throughout the books is that he needs to eat in order to have his powers, because his hand has its own set of powers.
Right. And so we've seen this in the movie, right? Like there's that very weird scene where the hand gets cut off of Dee in the first movie. It reattaches itself, and then there's like one of those monsters coming after it, right? And what it does is it tries to suck it up. It's like a cloud monster, and so he tries to suck it up. He misses, and in order to get the power to suck it up again, he has to eat a bunch of dirt, and so he takes a bunch of handfuls of dirt out of the ground and eats that. And then he can do the suck up move again. So
yeah,
it's very weird. It's a very weird idea, but it is it at least has a weakness,
Yeah, and it's definitely a lot weaker when it's hungry because Toto thinks it's a rat crawling around, and so he impales it with a dagger. He throws a dagger at it and just kind of leaves it sitting there. And when he leaves to go meet with Dee, Wu Lin is drugged, and so she can't move, but she can speak. And the hand starts talking to her, and he's kind of stuck. He can't get the dagger out. So, almost completely powerless when he's not fed.
Yeah.
But the 3 children that got bit by Simone and Glenn, they show up. They're like hanging out at this temple, and so now they see that Wu Lin is helpless, and they're going to either eat her or turn her into a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole time, this hand is there. When he does get free, he finds a way to get fed, which I'm going to hold off on for a second.
Okay.
But when he does get free and he is fed, all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, you 3 have no idea how much in trouble you're in now." And whatever he does to these 3, it's not in detail described, but one of them bursts into white hot flames and just turns to ash.
Yeah.
From whatever it is that he does to her, and the other one he somehow slices right through his chest and rips his heart out.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, when he's powered up, he's powered up. This is not a hand you want to mess with. But these books are dark and weird, and there's definitely a little bit of a hint of fetishism in them.
Uh-huh.
Hideyuki Kikuchi has kind of has some weird stuff in a lot of these stories, and this might be one of the weirdest of them all.
All right.
Because the hand's solution to not having any food around at hand, if you will.
Yes.
He asks Wu Lin, who can't move, so she literally can't do anything to help, with one possible exception. He's like, "Have you had a meal recently?"
Yeah.
And he essentially implies that, "Look, if you take a leak, I can drink that, and that'll get me up to par." And that is how they solve that problem.
Well, that's horrifying.
Yeah, especially you know the whole way it plays out. Like the other vampires are like, "Look, she's so scared, she's wetting herself."
Well, like I also imagine the very irritating English voice from the second movie, just being just like muttering constantly about it.
Yeah.
That could be one of the worst scenes to ever be put to film.
Well, just remember, this is the next one he wanted to put to film.
I
Part
know.
of me wonders if he would have fought to have that scene included. And you know, this is the second half of a larger story, and that's where all of this is taking place. It's not like across both stories. This is stuff just happening in the second half. You have a love triangle, you have people turning on each other, you have someone being kidnapped multiple times, you have multiple people getting turned into vampires so that they become bigger threats that are just as easy for Dee to handle for some reason. And even the vampire, who I thought was going to... So this vampire...
Yeah.
That managed to turn itself into a vampire that can handle the sea without too much trouble.
Right.
He was a vampire called Baron Munster, like the cheese.
Okay.
He did experiments trying to improve vampire kind, trying to find ways for vampires to survive in sunlight and so forth.
Sure.
And one of the things that happened throughout the story was the vampire kept showing up and running into Wu Lin and thinking that it recognized her, and so it would run off again. And Wu Lin had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
And part of the story that wasn't explained clearly until the end was that for some reason something traumatic had happened to Wu Lin involving the death of someone she knew.
Okay.
So her husband had used no, not her husband, her uncle had used some kind of mind control to make her forget about it.
Okay.
And so she doesn't really remember till the end of the story. And then you learn that the vampire had merged his body with a human's body, and the human was this guy that Wu Lin had been in love with, but she didn't want to leave the village with, and so he became angry with her and was going to ruin her reputation and essentially cause her and her uncle and her sister to have to leave town. And so she freaked out and killed him in the heat of the moment.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, she killed him, and they kind of tossed his body in the sea to cover it up and said that it was the vampire or something.
Oh,
But then the vampire did find the body and used it to merge his cells with human cells so that the sea wasn't a thing anymore.
Uh-huh.
But because of an accident that happened that Dee discovered in a submarine...
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Dee found a submarine and uses it to travel underwater to find the vampire's coffin and realize that some weird thing had happened where a laser beam had cut through part of the coffin and had probably given the vampire brain damage. which was why it couldn't remember who it was clearly.
Wow.
Yeah, so this vampire returns, and this causes Wu Lin to relapse and remember what she did, and this kind of breaks her for a while. And
I see.
oh geez, who was it that fought the vampire and killed it? I think it was Dee. I'm not going to bother with the details of how it happened, but suffice to say, this vampire died as well. And so
Okay.
it was kind of like, all right, so I guess that's the big threat out of the way. And this is towards the end of the story. Now we have the situation where Krolak has become a vampire himself, and he has used his abilities to cause... he caused Glenn to kill himself, and just as he was about to make Simone kill herself as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or rather, he used his power on her to try and make her his vampire bride. Or slave or something. But then Dee shows up, and this is like, after everything else that happened in the book, you're like, okay, this is the real challenge Dee has to face. And so this guy tries to use his power to control Dee, and Dee just cuts him down.
Oh.
And Dee's hand makes the comment that, yeah, it was kind of a crappy picture, and that wouldn't have worked on Dee anyway. So it just straight up wouldn't have worked on Dee for some reason.
For some reason.
They don't
Even
give
though
it
it
any
works on other
explanation.
vampires.
Yeah.
Maybe Dee's wearing a wig the whole time.
Well, I mean, they do imply heavily throughout the story that, Dee is related in some way to Dracula. They don't say quite how. Yeah,
that's implied in the first story, sure.
And in this story, they kind of give an implication that he may have been a blood relative, or he may have been created by Dracula.
Yeah.
Someone in the book says something along the lines of, like, Baron Munster and Krolak were similar to Dee, but none of them quite matched Dee for what he was.
I mean, they call him a Dhampir, but he seems to have more powers than even the average Dhampir has.
Yeah, and they do imply that that can be the case for a lot of Dhampirs.
Yeah.
It's just that we don't really run into too many other ones. None so far in the stories I've read.
Well, I mean, how many have you read?
6.
Which 6?
The first 3, these 2, and...
Well, there's a Dhampir in the first story.
Was there?
Yeah, the what's-her-face.
Oh, she was a Dhampir?
She doesn't know she is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah,
right, that was the thing that he told her at the very end, that she kind of broke her. Forget her name.
It was the other vampire that was, that kind of, like, helped him out later on, right?
No, it was his daughter, yeah.
Yeah, the one vampire's daughter.
Yeah, what's his name? Count. He has a really, really basic name.
Yeah. Count Bobby.
Count Lee? Yeah, Count Lee. Pretty sure. But from the first story, she was a Dhampir, but she didn't know it for her whole life. Spoilers.
Yeah, so...
Not that it has any effect on the actual plot.
It's kind of hard to... Because the way I just described everything, it kind of sounds like it's a mess, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's enough going on that it'd be really hard to follow.
But I think what really makes it enjoyable is that it's laid out in a logical progression, so as you read it, it's not hard to follow. It's hard to look back and say, okay, which events took place first, because he just fought one person after another, and then you had the people fighting each other and getting in each other's way, and the different plots, and it almost felt like it should have been, a 20-page story where, okay, he showed up, these people tried to blackmail him with the girl, and he saved her, and yada yada. But when you actually read through it, all the stuff that happens is really fun. Like it's exciting to read.
Okay.
And at times it does feel like, okay, it just keeps going, but it's rounding up at some point, and you keep getting little surprises that are nice. Like, I was not expecting Gilligan to be crammed into the giant mechanical crab that kept attacking them.
No, that's a good point.
And the story of why Gilligan was doing this was one that was left hanging at the beginning of the book, and you kind of forget about it until they bring it back.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see what Professor Krolak had to do with a lot of this, like what was his motivation in this, because we knew he wanted the bead, but he seemed to know more about it than everyone else
Yeah.
And so, you were interested in, okay, what's he going to do when he gets the bead? And
If
given
he
that
gets the bead.
Yeah, if he gets the bead. And given that his power so far outclassed everyone else in the story, it was like, okay,
Except
well,
for
what's
D.
going to... Yeah, well, I mean, except for D, yeah. No, I mean, it was just really weird. It was just like, okay, this worked on everyone else, and then it just doesn't work on D, and we don't know why.
Like I said, he's wearing a wig. He's just as bald as Saitama.
Yeah.
That's part of what comes along with having his powers. Baldness.
I mean, I don't know if they implied any real reason that it didn't work, because they described Professor Krolak really going to town on the drawing of D, like really making it as detailed as possible. He described it as his best work yet. It was really only the hand's offhand mention that it was a crappy picture that implies anything was wrong with the picture, but knowing the personality of the hand, that kind of sounds more like he's just, making fun of Krolak, laughing in his face because this power doesn't work on D.
It does seem a little strange. Maybe we'll find out more in the next book.
And the lines in it are pretty great too. I mean, when D is fighting Professor Krolak, oh geez, what does it say? So here's the part where nothing had really worked. So opening his eyes, he said, "How did you escape my power?" The thin piece of animal hide dropped from his hand. "It was a crappy picture," a hoarse voice said with a scornful laugh. "The rougher the picture, the weaker the effect of your power. There's no way you'd snag him with the likes of that." That's another thing. They imply throughout the story that D is so beautiful to everyone else that nobody can really capture his beauty. So that might kind of be what they were implying too.
I guess. Yeah, that would make some sense.
So Professor Krolak says, "Is that so? I guess you were just too beautiful after all." The professor muttered pensively before taking a step back. The blade came out of him. D didn't give chase. "Shall we try this again some other time?" Professor Krolak said as he slowly retreated. "You have no tomorrow," said D. Fantastic lines like that all throughout this story.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, I mean, so let's take a step back. Let's talk a little bit about what's your overall impression of this book in particular? Worth reading? Worth reading only for D fans? What do you say?
It is exciting from start to finish, and that's over the course of 2 parts. This is one of the few 2-parters that he wrote. I think I mentioned in the last one about this story, in part 1, he did say that he writes all of his stories in notebooks that consist of 400 pages. Right. So when he decided to do a longer story, he was like, well, I guess I just need 2 notebooks. And it is. They're pretty consistent in length. He tends to just pretty much come close to filling out these notebooks for each book that he wrote.
Which seems like a really bizarre way to pace yourself.
Yeah, but I mean the consistency paid off, really. Yeah. And if the author himself considers this, the one that was worthy of being the next animated one, it tells you that this he really put a lot of his best efforts into this one. It does really show. The fight scenes are very well written. The interactions between the characters and their dialogue, most of it is very, very theatrical and fun to witness.
Yeah.
Everything is done with a bit of a flair, especially when D shows up. Right. And the descriptions that are used for a lot of the characters and a lot of the events that take place he does a good job of painting the darker images of the town. There's a festival going on at one point, but there's also these vampires that are showing up and killing children at another point, and so you get this dichotomy of people having a good time and dark forests in the background where it's like half summer and half winter going on here. There's a lot of things in these books about how the weather in this world is currently being controlled by old vampire technology, that some of which has gone out of control. And so they have one summer festival in this village because they only get 1 week of summer a year. And so the whole week is a celebration. And then it goes right back to winter. But there's some malfunctions that have been going on to where you're starting to see snow when the heat's out. And it's it's kind of a... He puts a lot of emphasis on the beauty of everything, even when it's in like a darker section of things happening in the story.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best examples of that is the second story in the first omnibus. I can't remember what it was called, but there's this town where I believe a girl was turned into a vampire, and there's a vampire in a town. He has to take care of it, and it involves a school or something. But he really did a great job of describing the winter scenes in that book.
Mm-hmm.
And he does the same in this story as well for all sorts of different scenes. He's got seasides and cliffsides and beaches and people traveling down roads, and
roadsides.
The first part had them traveling over sea. A whole bunch of different locations, all sorts of different hideouts that the bad guys use, underwater subterranean things, taking submarines down into the ocean. I mean, just all over the place, and it all is pretty visually impacting.
Okay. And so then the plot, while complicated, is fun to go through, and it makes sense as you go through it, at least, right? Like, it's not
absolutely. There were a couple of times where, because I set the book down and picked it up again, I got confused with which character was which, but not in any major ways. Like, there were a couple of times where I mistook the twins for the guy that could make puppets, and I was like, oh wait, no, this is a separate power. Why is... Oh, okay. And I think I wasn't clear on... because there were two twins, but you didn't know that at the beginning, right. I was sometimes misled into thinking the puppet guy was one of the twins.
Probably by design.
Maybe. I'm not sure on that. Because there were parts where I was like a little confused on what was happening, but that also could just be because it's, being translated into English from Japanese.
Yeah.
A very good translation, by the way.
Okay.
But that's pretty much it's pretty much the same in all of the ones that have been released. They've all been pretty good translations.
Yeah. I wonder about that a little bit. I'm probably going to pick up a copy of the first one and do a little bit of compare and contrast, because I don't know. Some of the way things were phrased in the translation of the first one, I'm a little bit leery at, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I mean,
it's not clumsy, but it is a little bit clunky sometimes.
There are things kind of like the hand saying that the picture was crappy. Obviously, that's not how it was written in Japanese. I'm not sure what exactly would have been said for Japanese there, but there's no way that I'm going to buy that the literal translation was that was a crappy picture.
Yeah.
It was probably something like, your picture wasn't good enough, or similar to that. Something a little softer than that.
Yeah.
But I feel, just from reading it and looking at the way the word structure is, that it was one of those... It's one of those books that kept a little bit of flavor of the way it might have been worded in Japanese, but didn't keep so much that it sounded too off. I mean, there were parts of it that did, but I consider those flavorful parts of the story. Like the best example I know of, and I'm actually going to have to... I don't know why I didn't think about this before. I have to reread the Dirty Pair novels. Because they were I don't want to say best, that's not the right word. They were the most fun translations of a Japanese story that I have ever read. Because the wordings that they chose for everything, a lot of it had to have been similar to the way it was in Japanese, but reworded in a way that sounded just proper enough to English-speaking readers.
Yeah.
That it had this very unique flavor to it. A style that, like, I haven't seen pulled off anywhere else in any other translation of a Japanese novel that I've read.
Well, maybe we'll have to do an in-depth episode on one of those.
Yeah, and those books, I mean, they might be my favorite science fiction books. It's kind of, between that and, like, Andromeda Strain and Jurassic Park, those are my favorites.
Cool.
I do remember one of the things that happened in those books that I really loved was the way that Yuri would describe something happening, and they would, like, she would describe a face fault happening, like or no, it was Kay, because it was told from Kay's perspective.
Okay, I was going to ask, yeah.
Yeah, she would often say things like, "I fell backwards out of my chair and my soul left my body," and I liked that so much, because it was so descriptive in a way that you would have seen it happen in like the anime version of that story.
Mm-hmm.
I used that several times throughout the Racken, when Country Kitchen was looking for the chocolates and she was talking about her ghost leaving her body. I pulled that directly from that. I was just like, I want to do something like that. And so at least 3 or 4 times in that book I did something like that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so I mean, we got other things to talk about, but I think I'll pull out the old Dirty Pair novels. Unfortunately, only the first 2 were translated. There were 5 total that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And they only ever translated the first 2 into English. They never translated any Crusher Joe that I'm aware of, which would be the same author as Dirty Pair.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's probably a lot of good material that could be coming to the English-speaking world if anyone ever jumps on that.
If only someone would license it.
Yeah.
And translate it.
I mean, you'd have to get the person that translated those first 2. It was just so good.
He might be dead.
Well, we'll have to turn him into a vampire and...
Yeah, right? One that's not afraid of the sea.
Yeah, we'll have to find that bead and bring him back for round 2.
Does the bead get consumed when he turns himself into a vampire that's not afraid of the sea?
Well, he has to... apparently, what happened was Gilligan in the crab thing discovered Professor Krolak inside the laboratory in one of the vats, evaporating the bead into his body. And so he tried to stop Krolak, so I guess that meant that Krolak's transformation wasn't 100% complete anyway. And this part was a little confusing to me, because I'm not entirely sure how he was simultaneously inside this vat in this laboratory, but still was able to pull out a picture of Gilligan and control him.
Well, oil-based paints.
I mean, it could be. But he drew in his own blood. That was how the spell worked.
Oh. Well, that's a little harder to do.
Yeah, just a little. And it's also not clear when he got the picture of Gilligan, because nobody knew that Gilligan was there, and he was in a giant mechanical crab where you couldn't see him. So the assumption is that Krolak knew that Gilligan was behind the other 5 people, and so he went and found Gilligan and made a drawing of him while he was unaware. But
maybe while his head was still halfway off or something.
Well, yeah, but it's never expressly said that he got the picture of Gilligan. At least as far as I remember. Maybe it was mentioned in a sentence or 2 and I just forgot about it.
Yeah, it could be something that you missed or something like that.
But there were definitely things that were kind of glossed over in this story. It's meant to be a more fun, action-y, eldritch, sort of...
fantasy, sci-fi.
Yeah, sword and sorcery story.
Sword and sorcery mashup kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned it about 1 million times now, but he took inspiration directly from Robert E. Howard's and Solomon Kane.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll call this an episode.
Yeah, that was a fun one to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, these are good stories. They're as was expressed in the postscript that you read at the very beginning. They aren't very anime in the sense of like having a lot of those tropes. They're really kind of their own thing, and they were only transmitted into Japanese animation later on. So even if you don't like the anime aesthetic, you won't find things in these books that bother you because they're part of the anime aesthetic. You might find things that you find that are unsettling or a little bit disgusting in the books, but them being too anime is not one of them, basically.
Yeah, and these books are a cut above a lot of the rest, because I've read a lot of the, well, not a lot. I've read a handful of, the isekai novels that people have translated into English, and a couple more of the light novels that made it our way. And to be honest, I mean, most of them read the same. Some of
Yeah.
them are surprisingly boring compared to what I thought they would be. Like, the guy
Yeah.
that did the Bakemonogatari stories,
Yes.
he had these detective novels.
Mhm.
And the first one he did, what's his name? Nishi Oishin, I think is his name. It's a
Yeah, that's right.
palindrome. And he has these stories where it's this kid who doesn't have much personality, and he just gets thrust in the middle of this murder that happens on in a mansion somewhere, kind of,
Mhm.
and then there were none-esque. And
Yeah.
the whole time there's this other detective character that kind of is his mentor, but she's really cruel to him.
Mhm.
She has personality. Everyone else in the story has personality. This kid does not have much personality. But the first book was pretty good because there was a presence of other characters that were challenging what was going on more regularly.
Okay.
But the follow-up books just didn't have any of that energy to them, and most of them were just like, here's things happening, here's a detective that's going to solve it. This guy is just
Yeah.
kind of along for the ride, and he isn't interesting. And so
Yeah. That's
it just wasn't a fun read.
Yeah.
The guy that writes those stories, I mean, from based off that one detective novel, he's got potential to have other good books. I've collected 3 of the Bakemonogatari series books. I haven't read any of them
Yeah.
yet because after
Oh.
reading that detective one, I was like, you know what? I need to fill in with some other stuff before I get back to this guy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Technique-wise, his writing is good, but there's a lot of boring amidst some fun. So I'm hoping the actual Bakemonogatari books are a little bit better than that particular detective series, which had good characters except for the main character.
Yeah.
And there's a story I read about. It's a kid who lives near you know how they've got like the video game esque stories where it's like a kind of like an online game world sort of thing.
Yeah. You
Well,
mean
this
like
is
lit RPG or something else?
not really that hardcore. This is more
Okay.
like it's not a video game world, but the world operates kind of with video game qualities. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
dungeons that people explore in, and
Yeah.
this kid happened to grow up in a town where they lived next to the toughest dungeon that there was to explore. So everyone in this town is incredibly strong, and he's like the weakest person in that town. He
Yeah.
gets sent to a town far away, and he doesn't realize throughout the story that he's actually the strongest person in that town, and not just by
Okay.
a small margin. It's kind of
Right.
like if you're thinking of it in video game terms, he essentially goes to a town where every character is level 3 and he's level 40. But he doesn't realize it the whole time. And so the
I
first
see.
book is kind of entertaining, had some pretty neat characters, kind of funny. I couldn't I couldn't bring myself to sit down and read the second one just yet. I've got it, but they did an anime for this show, and when I went and watched the anime, I was just like, the book was okay. The anime can't quite capture the book, and the anime
Yeah.
is just kind of it feels like stock parts,
Generic.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah,
had
there's a
some
lot
good
of that.
it had some good ideas in it too, because one of the things that happens is this girl gets cursed with a belt, and the belt protects her. After the curse is lifted, it ends up attaching to her and becomes her protector. And it's a
Okay.
really like high-powered magical weapon. So even the
Yeah.
strongest people in this world can't seem to do anything to remove it from her. It's as strong as they are. So there's like a
Okay.
really powerful witch from this kid's hometown that keeps coming in to check on him, and it's the only thing that she has any trouble dealing with in the story. And
Ah.
that kind of makes it funny because the girl falls in love with the hero of the story, but like to an obsessed degree. So like a
Yeah.
yandere degree. So like she won't let anyone else get near him. And so this belt is just fueling that.
Yeah.
There's some good ideas in this story, but these books, they're like, you sit down and read them once, and it's just like, okay, I read that. That was kind of haha cool, and now I'm done with that. It's not
Nothing
the
really to talk
same.
about.
Yeah, it's not the same with the Vampire Hunter D books. These are legitimately good reads that you can sit down and kill an evening with, and just be like, this is my reading for the evening. This is what I'm enjoying, and this is something I can really get into for a while.
Cool. All right. That is the impression that I've gotten from reading the first one. They're pretty solid, and they're not the same kind of mass-produced slop that we're getting today in the similar kind of fields from Japan. So yeah, worth a look if you like kind of fantasy sci-fi mashups with vampires and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I guess there is where we'll call it an episode. Yeah. So, as always, this has been the Wordy Pair Podcast. I'm Rudy.
And I'm Justin.
And we will be back next week with some more fun writing-related hijinks. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Wordy Pair Podcast. Our passion is all things writing, world building, and getting into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We hope you enjoyed our unique takes. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to get your weekly dose of writing weirdness. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on Twitter. For Rudy, it's @Rudolph_Cone. And for Justin, @Ninja Mouse Chew. See you next time on the Wordy Pair Podcast.